Hello, my lovelies. I am Madam Crystal Butterfly, and today I will be reviewing Paralyzed Emotions by Rodney D Roby. Before I get too deep into what this amazing book is all about, please allow me to tell you a little bit about the author. It took Rodney 32 years to write Paralyzed Emotions. He wasn't aspiring to become an author. His therapist encouraged him to turn his letters that he had written to her into a book. Rodney figured maybe it was his calling to turn his letters into a book. You see, Rodney suffers from schizoaffective disorder. Despite us being in the year 2022, there sadly is still a large amount of negative stigma around mental health, and it's just as bad when it comes to getting treatment for mental health issues, because a lot of people like to treat anyone seeking help for any mental illness that they have as if they're either just crazy and need to be locked away, or they're being pathetic by trying to take medication to help themselves. Knowing that anyone suffering from mental illness should not be afraid to try to find treatment so that they do not have to suffer. Rodney published this book hoping that if somebody reads and learns what he went through, it would make them feel more comfortable with seeking help, because they will not feel like they are all alone and have to suffer in silence. He also felt, and I agree with him, that books bring all kinds of people together, making it one of the best ways for him to tell his story, and as I said, inspire others not to feel afraid when it comes to seeking the help that they need, and also promoting more understanding about mental illness. When I read Paralyzed Emotions, it didn't take me long to see why his therapist thought turning his letters into a book was such a good idea, because Rodney definitely had one amazing story to tell. I even had a hard time picking which parts of the book I would discuss with all of you, because everything in this story was just too good. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I start even getting into the parts of the story that I really enjoyed, allow me to give you a little bit of a better perspective into what this story is all about by reading the back. When I was first diagnosed with mental illness, I sought after information that could tell me just what in the world was happening to me. There was nothing, or at least I didn't find anything. I wrote these letters to my first psychiatrist so she could see inside my head, to see all of the fear, confusion, hurt, and multitudes of thoughts that haunted me. When I read these letters to my wife, I actually cried. I completed this book with a prayer that it will help people who suffer to understand what they are going through and see that there is hope. Also, so people can understand what their loved one is going through. Prayerfully, this book will help doctors and counselors. This is very powerful. Not only will you see all the illness, but a lot of hope and healing. Alright, the first part of this story I wish to discuss with all of you happens when Rodney was a child. Someone told him that the bravest, the most dangerous, and toughest men were silent. This turned Rodney from being a little smart mouth to being completely silent. His silence made it more difficult for him to express himself, and it also did harm to his relationships and his condition. To give you a better view into what I mean, let's fast forward to Rodney's teenage years, where one of his friends introduced him to a girl we'll refer to as May. And May was the type of girl who was very quick to jump into the bed. When Rodney first met her, they immediately started making out in the back seat. Their relationship continued for an entire week before he even took the time to find out what on earth her name was. After he finally did take the time to learn her name, things between them didn't really change much. You see, May didn't exactly come from a household that cared about her education, so she was allowed to skip school. Her mother was also cheating on her stepfather, which May thought was just so super cool. I like the fact that the author included this information. May did a lot of things that showed she was just completely out of control. But by giving us a peek into the instability into the home of which she was being raised in, it was not surprising that she did not feel the need to control herself and ended up making a lot of the mistakes that she did. Rodney's association with May did quickly result in him feeling more entitled to misbehave and skip school just like her and act out in different ways. And this caused him a lot of problems at home. Eventually, the two of them got so out of hand that they weren't careful and May got pregnant. After learning about May's pregnancy, their families decided that May and her mother would take care of the baby and Rodney would financially support his child. But Rodney had a different idea. He didn't see why he and May couldn't just get married, raise their child together, and be a happy family. Unfortunately for Rodney, things did not go the way he had hoped. May was lazy and controlling, and Rodney was too scared of her leaving him that he could not bring himself to put his foot down with her and get her to be more helpful in the household, which also plays into his difficulty with expressing himself, because he had taught himself to suffer in silence rather than do anything about an issue. To give you an example of what I mean by May was just too lazy to even do anything to help her spouse, she would never clean their apartment. And even though Rodney was simply exhausted when he came home from work, He had to try to keep the house clean, but he never really had a whole lot of energy, making it difficult to live in a clean house, and most of the time their home was very messy. To make matters worse, May was not even willing to take care of their baby when he was born. One day, when Rodney was determined to get the apartment cleaned, he could smell something really foul, and he couldn't figure out what it was until he checked his baby's bed, where he discovered that the bed was where the smell was coming from. And apparently, whenever the baby messed the bed, May would not change the sheet. She would just put a new sheet over the pee-pee sheet. As much as I would like to tell all of you more about Rodney's relationship with May, I cannot, because this is a spoiler-free review. So if you want to know what happened between Rodney and May, then I suggest you read this book. It is really, really good. And trust me, my lovelies, you are going to definitely enjoy every single page of this amazing story. Alright, so before I get to the rating, I would like to talk to all of you about when Rodney became more aware of his mental illness. His parents had gone out of town on a trip, and he was home alone when he started to experience hallucinations. His hallucinations were so bad that it made him believe that he had to sit in the basement holding a gun, getting ready to shoot someone. This worried his family, and they had a family friend check on him periodically to make sure that he was all right. When his parents finally did return home, they had to convince him to go to the hospital. Rodney thought at first going to the hospital would be nice. He'd get to stay in the bed all day and watch TV. But unfortunately for him, his hospital experience was excruciatingly uncomfortable. Practically every day he was there. And when he was finally discharged and allowed to come home, the medication that the doctor had put him on made him feel so terrible. His entire body would shake horribly, and he had to beg the doctor to change his medication. As much as I would like to say after Rodney's doctor changed his medication, everything was hunky-dory and he was fine, no, he still had a long struggle ahead of him before he found proper treatment. And now, when it comes to paralyzed emotions, I am going to give it the rating of 5 butterflies out of 5. It was a very good book. Rodney's story, I feel, is very inspiring as someone who went through dealing with a mental illness and struggling to understand what his illness was, how it was affecting him, and how to get better treatment for it. And I'm telling you, my lovelies, if you do not read this book, you are doing a major disservice to yourself, because it is just too good of a book. Now, if you've made it to this part of the video, first I would like to say thank you, and please give me a like, leave a comment, and if you have not yet, click the subscribe button like it owes you money. And don't forget to give that little notification bell a ring. And with that, my lovelies, this video is a wrap. Now if you please come with me as we dance into a world of magic.